Two bond schedules, a little there.
Oh, okay, yeah, right now, I've got full occupancy.
That's like full something.
Yeah, I mean, when it's a nice situation to do it.
Yeah, my son, Tom and his wife are in.
Okay.
Appreciate it, though, from it.
Till I had to make
Well, I want to get you fixed up.
Oh, yeah.
45.
No, that's all
something
good.
like that.
They've been,
We got that.
Yeah,
2 weeks,
okay, I see the elephant.
almost 2 weeks, they've gone through a keg and a half.
Wow. You don't ask the question. Probably the question I feel is not gonna be, I've asked them before. How does the city probably pay for bonds?
Yeah.
Okay, so, there's a way. This is, I like specifics. Like exactly where it's coming from. My question is, we got $8 million in this,
There was three or
right
four
now, in this fund.
that were between
From
the
The infrastructure.
two or three right there. They were between the drinking station and the cemetery.
Basically, can we touch this $8 million? In the meantime, that we're going to 20 million.
It's gonna deplete. It's gonna go
Oh,
down
I know that. It's gonna go down because you're paying on the bond.
to a certain point, and then it's gonna level out, but you're never gonna deplete down below 4 or 5 million in that fund.
Okay,
This is
so,
what the schedule that we have.
because there's what, not 8 million?
Yeah, something like that.
This is not trenched across the field.
And we got 7 years left on the, and that's, I think it's 1.3 million a year, so maybe $10 million,
Yes.
$13 million, and
Yeah.
you're 20, so you got to be short 7 million.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna afford
I don't know, I would like to know some specifics, exactly how this can get paid back if it doesn't get approved. They say different, maybe they can kind of keep smoke up your ass and didn't give any
it. No,
specific, I'd like to know some
Okay.
specific where this money is going to come from, because we don't have to do much. You know? That's my thing. Is that your committee?
no.
Okay.
That's, well, I don't know what that's on, to tell you the truth.
I saw it on the agenda, and I was curious.
Could be under.
Whoever's here, we have property from over a year ago, and it's been done. There's nothing wise, that was November last year. I mean,
The one on the Azores house across the street from mine, it's nice.
I think, it's the same guy that had that other property there on the 12th.
Yeah, 10th Street.
District, the same guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
And is it toned, or is he being told? Something.
I think that's a valid point.
Sometimes you start fighting. It's just distracting from what really needs to be done for the
Why
city.
keep putting it, why keep putting it up? Stop putting it up. It's not
It's
gonna
every
pass.
September,
It's not gonna, well, that's okay, but we voted it down 4 or 5 times. Why do we keep putting it up? I have a plan, I promise you, once you hear it, you're gonna say, no problem. Keep an open mind.
Oh, yeah, but there's a couple of questions I really.
Well, I got a bunch of calls as well.
Sure. So that's one more point.
And look,
Oh, yes.
Got your name on it.
Thank you.
and I don't mind the phone call, but
Me either, but I didn't know how to answer it.
Here you
So
go.
that's really why I reached out to you.
No,
because I
that's
had
good.
no idea.
but I was, I'm gonna mention that we had a conversation, so that you were one of them.
He's been calling, he called me right before the meeting. Where we at?
It's a same story.
Yeah, oh, yeah, bitch in six.
That's okay.
Well,
They can still do it.
Better than being on.
so.
Got that?
Yeah.
We actually,
I think to ask, she said her, since
stay okay.
she's still
So,
pregnant.
Yeah.
wanted some stuff from us, went back over there. I don't know the way.
There's a light there, but
That's part of our,
Although, you're in the door. I like Jimmy, like, hey, everybody's doing this, supposed to do this, even though I know they're not. Like, some places still staying open till 2 in the
they'll
night.
go over.
So, I called the fire marshal, they called me back, and told me, they need to be closing at 11, to get their license thing. I can't vote on it, because I'm in it, somebody's on the committee. I got phone calls, it's going on, I'll figure it out. Let me know what you want to do.
Because you don't have
Put Jimmy on the spot, the ballots, they're gonna close at 11. That's it. So we make them, should give out liquor license, because they can't follow the state protocol. It seems like it'd be, So I wrote down a couple. Bragg gets in. Talk to him.
I don't think everybody did like that.
We did it, but it was the way it was set up. It was set up.
I've been checking it.
No, that's the problem. You want to never-
It never flipped it back.
How's everything going?
All right.
Miss Joan, how
Howdy.
are you?
Good, thank you. How about you?
It's out.
Is that you, huh?
Yes.
I thought it was, then afterwards, I was like,
That was me.
That'd be bad if you got
I'm
a
gonna-
dog, huh?
no, he went, he just did with the normal Sammy's and whatever. Yeah, but, yeah, that would be bad, yeah. Hey, Rick, how are you?
I mean, what's the worst thing? I had a pretty girl, and Alexa blowing the horn at me. That's the worst thing in the world.
When I was that age, girls used to blow at me too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It don't happen anymore. They both want me to get out of their way.
But
How you been, Mr.? Volunteered to take care of my youngest grandson, who's a year old, 4 months old. And boy, that's cramping our lives too. If I didn't use it, we used to get up and go. Now, it's like, I don't know. We got 8 more months to get. Unbelievable. Used to do everything. Or get fun on there, fall out loud, and giggle and It's amazing, huh? Yeah. Need some help? You can come back. Need something? Come on back. What you need?
You're looking for forms that I can fill out so I can be heard by the
Speaker?
That's not,
You don't have it for the meeting, they, the chairman.
council meeting.
Yeah, me.
Not me.
So just come up to the podium whenever it's time.
So, what they do, they have to be done before
Like the
December
Stevens night.
31st.
Oh, it's not? Is he sick?
The last one that, I think the last meeting that they should come to
Fun room.
experience.
Fun room?
Had it in December, but it was not
See what I did there?
by December 31st. From
I
January.
don't know, my son was there, he doesn't think it's fun.
Have too much fun?
Not too much fun.
They no longer operate.
Hey, for you.
They're operating the new spot.
What about this one?
I heard that, yeah, I saw they were. And the guys in the sewers. Wow. That's pretty hazardous. Yeah, I heard they were over there digging up.
Now, this is when, they're in 2017, when they had the flood.
Yeah.
We needed to do it. So that time. Anytime it's just filled up.
But it's legal. It's gonna be a done deal now, though.
Oh, yeah, we repaired it.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, shouldn't be back.
I thought.
If we hope.
It's working.
No, yeah, fine. I didn't get any text yet, I don't know what they are.
I started it earlier.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
You got Kim?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to, based on this,
You don't mind?
Yeah, I just
You want to sit down, Mr. Ringo?
Yeah.
If that would be the last place that someone, that we would have a chance,
yeah.
they would even go into.
Well, if you want to mention it, we can talk about that, if you just want to mention that. That would use me out. Does he have a problem? And then I'll say it.
Yeah. Here, you know, so you know about
Yeah, you know, that's,
That way, everybody sees the fire.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
That's cool, that's all I.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Oh, sir. Good.
you all right, huh? No, I ain't got no problem with this.
I don't know.
Yeah, ain't got no problem. Everybody, how y'all doing?
Good.
How you, sir? Yeah, how you, sir? I tried to download when I finally got it.
Okay.
Everybody all right? Good. Go ahead, we open.
Hello, how are you?
I look, I'm happy to leave, I gotta be in down with you 7 o'clock. I gotta be down there. Reggie got a big glove, he can handle that, bro.
Public Works, Mr. Quigley.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee. Everyone is present except Mr. Fogelman. First off, we'll have Mr. Albert John, the Public Works Director, come up.
Good afternoon. I only have a couple of things. We have one piece of equipment that's out of the shop for repair. We had a high gas pole, lights were out at exit 82, that has been repaired. We are not spraying for mosquitoes at this time. I will continue to monitor the mosquitoes because it's gonna warm up again next week. So we have not sprayed in the last 10 days, so. That's all I have. Any questions?
Hey, go enjoy your ball game. Thank you. I'm gonna skip around now. Mr. Delafield is gonna be addressing this, and they have a long way to go to get back, so we'll let him go next, if that's all right.
Just a second.
Good afternoon, folks. We were able to sell your bonds to the streets and drainage project. And I
Something
have,
went wrong. Please try again.
who's talking to me? Anyway, I have Whitney Laird with Stifel Nicholas here.
You raise your,
Oh,
there you go.
How about that?
Yeah, okay.
And what I'd like to have is Whitney explain to you exactly what she confronted at the time the bonds were sold. Because there's a great deal of competition in the marketplace on whose bonds would be receiving, who received well, or those who would not be received well. And your bonds were extremely well received. Having said that, you were going to have only issued $14 million for the bonds, but you have $15.6 million in your construction fund for streets and drainage. Now, let me explain that to you right now.
Good evening, Whitney Laird with Stifel. At the beginning of October, Standard & Poor's rated your city's transaction at an A+ stable, which is very good. We priced this transaction on October 20th. Pre-pricing, which is the day before pricing, we were estimating about a 2.7 true interest cost to the city. Tuesday morning, we decided, once Monday's results came in from that day's pricing, that we thought we could get a little bit more aggressive, and we did. So your total true interest cost is at $256. That's for 20 years. Stifel underwrote about $1 million of those bonds, and everything else went to other investors. So take any questions from that.
I have one question. Again, I was asked right before the meeting again, and by a constituent, but, okay, so if our tax renewal doesn't happen, you're confident that we're gonna be able to pay this, this?
Yes, I mean, it would be, it's a budget item. You can pay this from lawfully available funds of the city. Internally, I know you guys plan to pay this from the sales tax fund, but if that was not renewed, then it would have to be paid from other sources of the city.
Now, I understand that, but the question is, again, is that you're confident that the city would be able to pay the bond if the tax doesn't pass?
Yes, sir. I mean, again, it would be a budget item, an appropriations budget item.
Okay, we can't afford it right now.
But, yeah, I mean, S&P rated these bonds as well. They took a look at, different metrics of the city and felt confident with an A+. I think an A+ is a great rating, and it's a stable rating too.
Okay, right.
And I would assume when they did the rating, they looked at the existing term of the tax that we have now and
Right.
the risk, and they took consideration.
Right, and they
the risk.
didn't take just into consideration that fund. They took into consideration all of the governmental funds.
Well, thank y'all very much. Thank y'all for coming.
If you don't mind, I would like to say one last thing.
Yes, sir.
You received, and Tim will tell you about it better than I can, you received a notice to proceed today from Sustainability Department for commencement of construction of the turf project, which is actually, there are folks with geoservices here in the city already preparing that project. And you recall back in June of this year, we were dealing with First Financial Security out of Little Rock on a lease transaction. Well, that lease transaction fell apart when they refused to go forward because of COVID. We then immediately switched over from a lease to a cooperative endeavor agreement as a utility transaction for the installation of the turf project. Having said that, Sustainability Partners has come through. We have negotiated with them from the end of June until just now to get that project underway. But the difficulty was, in June, you guys passed a resolution employing me to do that work as a lease project. Well, I sent that particular resolution that you guys adopted to the Attorney General. The Attorney General just kicked it back and said, no, you can't do that because you're not doing a lease transaction. You can only work on an hourly fee basis. And that I am going to prepare a resolution for you guys to consider at your next regular meeting to employ me on an hourly fee basis. The upshot of it all saves the city about $4,000 to $5,000 in cost because it goes from a bond issue fee essentially to an hourly fee basis. And the hourly fee is $225 for lawyers who've been practicing for 10 years or more, and I've been practicing a little bit longer than 2 years. So I'll just let you guys know that'll be coming to you in the next couple of weeks or so. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And, next up, Mr. Gilbert Bozing was not able to be here, so he sent in his report, and I'll read it now. Thanks to the Crowley Fire Department and Crowley Police Department once again for coming together dealing with another storm. Delta ended up having more debris than Laura. Around 100 trees have been cut up. They handed out approximately 2,000 sandbags, and they have completed about 25 work orders due to the cleanup. They've been cutting grass and picking up trash in our parks. And they cut 28 trees at the rec department and have been grinding stumps. And they've made some repairs on some catch basins. And I can tell you, I went out there while they were cutting those 28 trees. And that saved the city of Crowley a substantial amount of money because I had to pay $2,000 to have one tree cut. So if you do the math, our guys doing that for us really, really saved the city a lot of money. So I applaud them for doing that. Next up, we have Mr. Tim Bader, city engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should all have a copy of my whole report that covers all committees in front of you. I want to call your attention to the first page of the report, page 1. And you'll notice there's an attachment D referred to there, and it's called Summary of Capital Outlay Request. If you go then to the very last page, page 27, this is a listing of the capital outlay requests that were made, submitted on November 1st. They were due, as they are every year, on November 1st. And what I've done, if you look on that last page, 27, you'll see there are 8 projects. 1 through 7 are projects that have been submitted at various times over the last, say, 10 years, maybe a little more in some cases. The page tells you what priority that project is in, what the grant amount is, what the local commitment would have to be, what the total is on each project. Particular interest maybe would be number 8, which is a project that Mr. Martin had asked us to include this year. It's a multi-purpose building shelter, and we've estimated that total project to be at $2.4 million. 1.8 of that would be grant. So I want y'all to be aware of that. The total of all of those 8 projects is a little over $6,258,000. And we also have a community development block grant project that's been in the hopper for a while. It's at $1.5 million roughly. So we have 7.75 more or less in grant requests at this time on those capital outlays versus, and also the LCDBG project. You'll be aware. I'm going to keep this in the report every month so you'll be able to see it in case the question comes in. With that behind, if you look on page 2, the item 1 there is our drainage and street improvements project. And I have some action items on page 3 and some updates. If you're on page 3 of my report, you'll see where I have A in the margin, in the left margin, CY Drainage Improvements Project. Construction activities are continuing in the month of November, and right now they're on LaBelle Drive and East Park subdivision. We're still thinking that we could see a construction completion date in May, June of 2021, based on the contract time. I have a little bit more on that in a minute concerning contractor's request for an extension of contract time, and I'll explain that. If you look at B in the margin, partial payment estimate number 5, I have no numbers to fill in. It happens often when the cutoff date, which is always the last day of the month, falls too close to the meeting. We can't get our numbers approved between us and the contractor. So action requested would be to approve partial payment estimate number 5 to Southern Constructors for that project in an amount to be reported to you at your regular meeting next Thursday. And I'll have those blanks to fill in at the time.
Also, second by any discussion? Mr. Franklin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, do you have an estimate on that payment?
I don't, but I can tell you that because of the storms, which relate to the contractor's request for time, that he didn't do nearly as much work in October as he had in past months. I'm going to guess that it's probably under 100,000, probably not much more than 100,000, if at all. Just don't have those numbers until we get together with him and we check our quantities against his quantities. And if I find out sooner, I can email that information to you all. We may know by tomorrow or the next day.
Anybody else? Anything? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. If you look at item E, at the bottom of page 3, it's change order number 4 is being proposed. And as I mentioned, the contractor requested some additional time that he thinks he's going to need to complete the contract due to time lost because of the storms and the aftermath of the storms. He's requesting 45 additional calendar days in the contract. The original contract calls for 400 calendar days to finish everything. So he's asking to add 45 to that 400. If you look at the top of page 4, I finished the explanation there in writing again due to hurricanes, not only the approach of the hurricanes, but during the storm and then after. So I think that the change order number 4 is a reasonable request, and I would recommend that you approve that change order to increase the contract time by 45 days.
Second.
Offered by Mr. Martin, seconded by Mr. Ford.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, on that same page 4, where I have F in the margin, that's going to be related to the citywide street improvements project, the bond issue. You just heard from Mr. Delafield and Ms. Laird about the funding and the bonds. I have some updates there below that in highlighted red and yellow. What I'd like you to take away from this is that for what we're calling contract A, if you recall, we divided the project up into A and B. Basically, A is South Crowley and much of East Crowley on the east side of Parkinson, and B is pretty much just the rest of the city. Those two contracts divide up to be almost the same amount of construction costs, so very close to the same amount of construction contract amount. It's going to change just a little bit when we talk about the city-owned parking lot improvements, because we decided to do that work take it out of contract day and do it on its own so the parking lots could be ready for the tournament baseball season. But going back to contract A, we anticipate asking for you to approve the plans and specifications and authorize us to go to bids. That approval would come in December. If we bring it to you then, we would then hope to receive bids in January, award a contract in February, and then begin construction maybe in the March time. So it's a little bit of anticipation. It's not precise, but that's what we're shooting for now. Then contract B, we wanted to come on the heels of contract A. We did the drainage project to get all the drainage work out of the way for contract A, so we didn't have to worry about having any streets being cut for the drainage project after we did the overlays in contract A. What we anticipate is that we would come to council possibly in March to approve plans and specs and authorize the new process, and we would receive bids in April, possibly award a contract in May, and then begin construction in the June, July timeframe. Again, we're going to put all this together time-wise based on the progress of the drainage project and the progress of us being able to get the plans in front of you for approval. No action is being asked at this time for those projects. If there aren't any questions on that, if you look at item G, on the bottom of page 4, it relates to the city-owned parking lot improvements. I have with me, and they're at important steps there, the plan and specifications are complete. I would ask that you approve the plans and specifications and that you authorize us to go to bids at the earliest possible time in accordance with the bill. I do have a resolution for that today.
Chair,
Offered by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Williams. Discussion?
I show in there that we're estimating this parking lot project to be in the range of $1,750,000 and $1,850,000. I'm going to change that a little bit because when I met with Peter, he asked, I asked him if he would think it would be a good idea to do overlay on Oxford. We think we should do the overlay, patching and overlay of Oxford Johnson Drive with the parking lot projects because you've got parking lots all along there. So we're going to pull it out of contract A. So it's just doing it sooner than later. It doesn't change the cost of the program. So that's why I would now say instead of what I wrote here, I would think we'd be looking at the cost of contract, the parking lot improvements project at somewhere between 1.8 and 1.9.
one question.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Parking lot itself, the one across from the Wastewater building, the old,
Step.
oh, sorry about that. The old, utility building, what's gonna be done with that project? It's gonna be paved or we gonna just,
Which one's that?
that's the one that used to be the old utility building, right on, Oscar Johnson Drive. One right across from the, Wastewater building, between the park.
Okay, that, if I could show you on the plans, or maybe after the meeting to get a better impression, but we're taking what was the barn there,
Right,
and then there was a swimming pool.
right, that's the
That
same.
entire area is going to be made into one massive parking lot.
Good,
It's
okay.
going to have hundreds of parking spaces right in the middle of the facility.
Good enough, all right, thank you.
And by the way, the plans include the improvements to Martin Luther King parking lot.
That sounds good. Anyway, you can probably email a copy of this too?
Sure,
Okay, I would think, at least myself, I don't know about the rest of it, but I'd like to have that, I should say.
I can do that. What I'll do, I think if it's all the same use, is mail to you an aerial photograph with all of the parking lots overlaid in one sheet. And it will show you not only the expansion of some of them, it will show you how many parking spaces in each location.
Sounds good, appreciate it, thank you.
Ms. Franco?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, what was the price on that, or estimated?
I show here that we were estimating between 1.75 and 1.85, that's on page 5. And I wrote that before I met with Peter, and we decided it would be better to have Oscar Johnson added, so I'm increasing that estimate a little bit to provide for patching and overlay.
Will that decrease contract A price, because Oscar Johnson was on that?
Yeah, we'll take it out of that budget.
Is there any reason why we should do that so soon? The parking lot so soon?
It just makes that whole improvement of parking lots on the rec center just look better. And we would also be able to better tie in the grades on the new parking lot where we get very close to Oscar Johnson Drive. So we wanted to do that as well.
And I'm sure you have the timeline on here, right?
Right, the parking timeline is if you will authorize this at your meeting, and we will advertise for bids and take bids. It won't be able to be before the December meeting because of the 30-day that we need by law, but we would take bids probably right after your council meeting, maybe the following week, and then we'd like to come to you before the January meeting and award it so we can get that contract underway in time for a tournament season.
And the soil sampling and everything has already been done for that project, and
Yes.
everything's okay?
Yes.
No problem.
None that I see.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I just would like to point out, Mr. Mayor, if you could, point out how many more parking spots by doing this got the increase.
I think we basically doubled what you have now. A lot of what you have now is the inefficiency of limestone without markings on the ground. I think you're probably somewhere around 300 or so. Peter is here, you look correct me there. I think we're going to wind up with somewhere around 6 to 620, 630.
Mr. Court?
The additional 1.8 to 1.9 million, my concern is how's it going to be paid for? And was that considered in the business plan? And if not, then you can enlighten us on, some idea how this is going to be paid for in the long run.
In the business plan, it was not, but I believe that all of the overlay parking that we're talking about was all part of the original street overlay project. Mr. Mayor could probably, speak in detail about that. The only thing that we added new was in front of the tennis court area at the Valley Trauma Tennis Center. But from what my understanding is that the paving of the parking lots out there is part of the overlay project from the beginning.
And those are in the plans, Tim, as far as where the surfacing is going to be?
Yeah, okay. We're very detailed. I can leave them here if you want to look at them at your leisure later.
Sure.
I will email you what I have. The overlay on the aerial photograph gives you a really good idea of the expansion. You see where we're expanding beyond existing.
Mr. Hoosier?
Talking about the parking, I think originally it was 600,000 was in the original plan. Then you came to the council and asked for another million to double the parking because you're anticipating being Lake Charles damaged, you would have more business there. Is that correct?
What was the last thing you said?
The original proposal was 600,000 for parking lot. Then you came to the council and was asking them to approve another $1 million for more parking places. Is that correct?
Yes.
So originally, y'all was only, in the original plan was only 600,000 was when you used for parking.
Yeah, that was before where there was even a notion about the turfing project.
But the original was 600, right?
I think it was 900, but you may be right. I don't remember. It's been a while.
It's
on-
I remember 600, I don't know.
It could be. It was on the plan that you all
But I
had.
know you did come and ask for another million, correct?
Last month, we anticipated that the expansion of the parking lots to double the capacity would
Right.
probably cost about,
So now you're at 1.7, 1.8,
could be this.
from 600.
Or maybe 900.
And I think from what I remember is that the addition, like the swimming pool area and in back of, down Oscar Johnson Drive and expanding the parking lot at, Hinskins Park, I don't think any of that was covered in the overlay. I think that's additional, right?
The expansion was not in the overlay.
Right. So that's what I think Mr. Core was asking, somebody was asking Peter about, but there is some additional stuff that has been added that wasn't in the original overlay that we approved.
Exactly, that's why we predicted probably another $1 million when I came to you last month.
And that's why I'm trying to clarify that.
When I asked you to break the parking lot out of the contract A, I said at that time that I thought it would cost about $1 million.
And I'm just trying to clarify Mr. Hooters and Mr. Core's questions about why it's more, because this proposal is adding a whole lot more than just overlaying the parking lots that were there before. We're actually adding a whole bunch of additional stuff to it.
That's correct.
From 600,000.
What we were doing before the tournament, the turf project was overlaying, patching and overlaying or creating a new surface on the existing footprint of the parking lots.
Ms. Franco?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. Is that standard procedure to do a soil sample before we've approved the project? And do you know about how much that costs the city?
I think we got a company called Site Engineers to do the borings, and they did, I know it had to be on the order of 40 or 50 borings throughout the area. And I think that cost was on the order of about $15,000. And your question is, would we do soil borings before we do that?
Yes, if we do that, is that standard procedure to do that before we approve that project? To do a soil sampling test?
No, we would wait until the project was approved, and then we would spend the money on soil sampling.
But we already did it,
Already did what?
the soil sampling. Right?
Yes, but
But we
design,
didn't approve the project.
you approved us to prepare
So we-
plans and specifications about 6 months ago, and so we had to have the soil borings in order to prepare the plans and specifications.
But only for the fields, though, right? Or,
No street department.
okay.
In fact, we did soil borings in areas back in the city where we're doing reconstruction of streets. And that's all part of that same site engineering soil boring. But we wouldn't want to do soil borings until you authorize the plans and specifications. And we wouldn't want to do plans and specifications until we did soil borings. So it would be approve the project, take the borings, do it.
I'm still confused.
I'm sorry.
We did, so we didn't approve this project yet.
Oh, yes. All you're doing now is approving the bid process, but you authorized the preparation of plans and specifications by resolution,
Okay.
I think back in September of last year.
For extra parking spaces?
No, you did that last month.
Okay.
We had to take soil borings even if we didn't expand the parking lots. We wound up taking more borings once we expanded the parking.
Well, just to be clear, none of this has been approved yet by the council. We're still, the plans have been approved. But
Project.
as far as the project, it has not been approved. The 1.8 or $1.7 million has not been approved by the council yet. This is just the plans and specifications for that project, if it comes, right?
Yeah, you're authorizing us to take bids, and you have not authorized the contract because we don't have bids.
And to prepare the plans, you need to do the board,
Yes,
and that was approved by the council.
yes.
Okay.
Well, let me say, I don't think you specifically said you approved the borings, but
Well-
that's understood in the planning process.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
If I may add to that, even in the point when we doing the housing, a lot of times that's part of the process. The board, PSI on some, some grounds loose, then it would have been additional cost to basically get everything packed out, am I correct?
Yeah, we want to know what we're fixing to invest a lot of money on top of what's there.
Yeah. What it does, it's a precautionary element, but it saves down the way, because if the soil sample comes in with too, we don't either remove it or, there's an extra cost for it.
I just know that when we built our house, we didn't do any soil sampling until we had, we're ready to go with the project, but, so I was just confused on that, so.
Any more discussion? And this is to send it to the full council next week. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I don't have any other updates that I want to bring up. You have the items highlighted in yellow where I had particular information that might be useful to you, but you can contact me if you have any questions about any of this. That's all I have for action.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Are there any more legal items to come before this committee? Yes, Ms. Franco.
Thank you. I'm sorry that Mr. Gilbert isn't here because I wanted to ask him about the trees in town and if there is a height requirement, and maybe the mayor would know. Is there a height requirement for our department to cut down a tree that's in the city right of way?
Yes, they can. So, yes, they can, and we did measure that, probably 6 months to a year ago. We measured, it's approximately 12 feet from the road, from the height of the road to the bottom of the tree limb, which is overhanging. And we are authorized to be able to cut it at any given time because it has to be cleared for emergency vehicles.
And if they're higher than that, what do we do?
I'm sorry?
If they're higher than what we can cut,
Let me clarify that for you.
Yeah, go ahead,
I
please.
think she's talking about the height of the tree. Is there a height, like say 80 feet, that we can't cut it? We have to get an arborist or somebody in to come cut it? I think is that what you're asking?
Or you're talking about a tree that is beyond our reach with our equipment?
Right.
Then we have to get a contractor.
And what is the height?
yeah, what's the cutoff? Okay.
I apologize. I'm going to say between 60 and 80 feet. Don't quote me on that number, it's just a good guess.
Okay. I'll
I
find
can
out.
get that number for you, but
Okay.
I don't have it at the moment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I
You press the mic.
have a home,
Wait till red guy comes.
I have a home that, the city had asked me to either demolish or try to bring up to code. And with the hurricane that passed and the tree damages and all, I took some pictures and I have been adamantly at work in this, venture. And I'd like to ask the city council for.
Can I think that's going to be an issue for the
Are you coming up?
code
Public safety.
code enforcement and public safety. Mr. Corey, when he starts, I think, then he'll address that
All right,
with code enforcement.
thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other legal items coming before the council? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I've got a problem. On Avenue I, between Northgate Apartments and Genesis, the grass is off the wall. My mother lives across the street. They're infested with rats. She's killed 60 rats. The grass is as tall as me. Even by the tractor supply on that side, it's horrible. People come in our town and say, what's going on? They're not taking care of, we used to be the cleanest city. Go down the frontage road, the service road, go to Walmart, look at the ditches. Look, I mean, it's nasty. I mean, is it a health? Yes, it's a health aspect. Very health. It is not good. My mother cut her hand by opening a trap. Had to go to the hospital, take a tetanus shot, and she's on an antibiotic. She's 88 years old. Okay? Also, I did call the mayor. I left messages, and I did many messages on the phone. This was Saturday. He didn't answer, so I drove to his house. Asked him to come to see the problem. He said he couldn't do it today because he was going to see his grandchild. Well, I think if the mayor's running the city should be clean. It is not healthy for the people that live here. Y'all can't tell us Crowley is a clean city. Go down, Standard Mill Road, look by all that long grass by the railroad tracks. Is it our problem to go out and cut it? No, it's not. Now, you can't tell me, Mr. Mayor, that you have not drove down North Avenue I, the middle of town, and see how it looks.
Ms. Kathy, you did ask me when I could go, and I told you I would be there Sunday morning after church, and I went. And Monday morning, I called Mr. Freeland's office, and I did ask him to please cut that grass because of the situation.
Okay, well, this is a regular routine. We've been our tongues for a while. Now I'm not buying it anymore. Number two, you said to my mother, exact words, I will bring you some rat poison tomorrow, Monday. You did not even contact her or came. Number two, you said, Miss Duyon, I will see that it's cut Tuesday. The grass is still not cut. So who's doing their job and who's not? We elected you in there to do the job. It's not being done. Go around town. The grass is horrible. We used to be the cleanest city, signs and everything. Beautiful flowers, everything. We have nothing. So why you didn't contact my mother and said, well, I got to go to the man. You did not. I hate to say this. If you can't do the job, get out. Let someone else that can do it. That's how we feel. And I'm not the only one in town. Tim, we're going around trying to get you out. I'm not going to lie. We are. In one day, when I went to one neighbor, she said, we want him out. And I got a petition, and they're signing you, buddy, like that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And I guess this is Kim and Jeff's son.
Yeah,
So y'all have, I went and looked at it too, and it's pretty bad, so.
yeah.
It's tall. I agree that. I never got signed. Same problem between Northgate and, you know, this been talked about for years. Okay? When you go on down and the lady's 100% right, I don't know what it is, you know, the first question I asked, well, maybe they're building hate. Okay? But at the end of the day, look, we got people that's being paid to do this. Tim, you know what you just put out, I mean, without a doubt, someone put it as posts out in the newspaper. I mean, the bottom line here, look at the man who can't do the job, tell him to go home. You know? We were the ones that were petitioning to get things done. Now you got people from the audience coming in. If that don't change, look, man, things are not being done here, and I won't prolong this, because I have another place to go, but listen, something needs to be done with this, it really does, and I agree with the lady 100%. You're getting paid to do a job. If you can't do the job, there's a whole bunch of people that wouldn't.
I think that's why we came up with the citation book, and we were gonna try and put some teeth into the ordinance and try and make people start doing it, and if they didn't do it, then they were gonna be fined, and, I think we were told flat out that that's not gonna happen, so I don't know what the next step could be, but we just have to deal with it. I can talk to the man myself, he's my neighbor, I can maybe get him to take care of it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I live
Your name?
on 14th Street.
Can you state your name?
Back in November, I think Jeff Prevail put in a work order to clean the culverts on 14th and 15th on the 1200 block. Well, it's never been done yet. So I called the other day and I talked to Tim. He said, well, the work order's been canceled. Now, how can you cancel the work order if the work order has not been done? So if that's part of Gilbert's canceling the work order, then for the work not done to make him look good, well, we don't want that. We want the work done. So and Tim assured me that it would be done. Well, it's not done yet anyway. And another issue, they're going around picking up the trees and all this stuff. Well, I have no pine needles and no pine trees in my yard. Well, they come out and they picked up some of the limbs that was in the front yard, and they dumped pine needles and pine cones into my front yard. They dug up the doggone grass and everything in the front. I talked to Gilbert about it. I'll take care of it. It's not done yet. So I don't know what's going on in the city. I know they have a lot of stuff to do to try to clean the city up. But if you tell somebody something, do it. If you're not gonna do it, don't tell me. You know, that's the way it works. And I got something else that later on, but I'm gonna say it now.
All right, thank you.
Now, that's the utility thing. I'm not doing nothing on the user fee tonight, huh? Huh?
We were asking what your name was. Yes, I'm sorry.
I can't
Can
get
you, can you give us your name for everyone else?
Your name?
My name is John Hanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hanks, and I think the sewer user fee may be coming up later on another, on the utility committee. Anybody else, or anything else? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Just to respond to that, it was done. Brenton went and flushed out his pipes with the pump truck. He went and flushed out his pipes. He may not have been home to see it. And we did before Laura, and we did it again afterwards. Now, the scraping of his grass may have come from the company or the contractor, DNC, whatever they are. It's possible that they could have scraped his grass, because I had another complaint about that as well, and they went and repaired the man's yard.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Teresa Richard. I live at 1005 East 7th Street in Crowley. I know story is just very similar to the rest of the people that were up here speaking with regards to ordinances and code enforcement here in the city of Crowley. And I have a specific question because I've read the ordinances.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I guess. I've read through the ordinance. And the ordinance doesn't call for you to pick up the phone and call someone and ask them to go mow their grass. The ordinance says that you shall send them a letter and give them 5 days. And so my question is why, if the ordinance calls for a letter to be sent, so that there's documentation that they were warned, why is that not happening? And I'm going to go into the fact that I have pulled and made a request here to the city for a list of all of the complaints that were filed against Mr. Wayne Daly in particular, who owns 3 houses that surround my home. And I know for a fact that I have called in numerous complaints with regards to the homes that are clearly out of ordinance in my neighborhood. And none of those are listed with the exception of one where he dumped sewer on the ground next to my house for 6 years. It's noted 4 years before they actually condemned the house so that he would fix it. Didn't send him a letter. Didn't do what they were supposed to do the first time. I would like to know why the ordinance is not being followed. If the ordinance says that you shall send a letter, why are you not sending a letter? Why are you instead picking up the phone and calling?
Can I, if you don't mind, would you mind giving me those addresses of the ones that you were referring to, please?
Off the top of my head, I can tell you one is, I think, 1005, it's 1007 East 7th Street. There's a house that's 2 houses down from mine that has a giant scaffolding, and it's on wheels that have blown from one side of the street to the other for the last 2 hurricanes, almost smashing in houses. There's a house on Avenue N next door to me, 728 North Avenue N, that is clearly condemnable. The house across the street from me, that's also on East 7th Street, probably 1003 or something like that.
728 North Avenue N as in November?
I think it's North Avenue
Okay.
N, yeah. That particular house I've been calling about for the last several weeks because the landlord there, the owner of the property, came in and just dumped all of in fact, regraded the whole yard and pushed all of the dirt, leaves, and branches right into the city ditch where it has sat for the last 2 months now, I believe. Was it 2 months ago that the first storm hit? It's been sitting there, and I've been calling, and nobody's done anything while we have to dig leaves and everything out of our ditch to keep the water flowing. Nothing's happened. So again, my question to you, sir, is if the ordinance calls for you to send a letter that you shall, that's what the terminology is in the ordinance, that you shall send a letter and that they'll have 5 days. Why isn't that happening?
I can sure check into that for you on these particular addresses.
Well, can you tell me why it didn't happen for the tall grass the lady just mentioned? You said you called. That's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance says when a complaint comes in, that you shall, not may, that you shall send a letter, so that would, make it a part of your public duty. And, a failure to perform your public duty could be considered a malfeasance. What I'm asking you then, in particular, why did you call about that grass? Why is that common? Why is that something that's happening? Why did you do that? I can ask you personally, because most of the time they say, oh, well, that's Tony or this one or that one. But you said it was you that called him. So I'm curious, why is that? Why not send them a letter? Can you tell me?
Thought it would be just a quick response and getting it done as soon as possible.
But do you see what it causes, sir? What it's caused is it's caused the deterioration of our property values, obviously. People can't sell a house here in Crowley anymore. Nobody's really happy with the way things look. There's not a lot of quality of life here. And lastly, sir, it's a matter of our health and our children's health. Because that trash, that filth, those rats, those mosquitoes, that sewer that people dump on the ground, it can cause people to become very sick. So again, I would just like to ask why that's not happening, and if it's going to start happening now, or if it's just going to stay the same.
Well, just like Mr. Crater said, we have these, thank you.
Any other legal items that come before the committee?
Well, I'd just like to follow up on that, because when Miss Kathy did call me about the tall grass, she stated that the mayor told her that it was 10 days that they had to cut the grass. So I'm glad that Ms. Richard brought to light what our ordinance actually says. And I was bringing our ordinance book to the meetings. I guess I'll have to start bringing the ordinance book to the meetings once again. So, that's all.
Thank you. Anything else? In the Public Works Committee recess.
Thank you. Utility Committee, Mr. Martin.
And you told really, going to be everyone, thank you about that. Hello, Mr. President. Let's see, Tim. Great, you want to come up with the wastewater report, please?
Good afternoon. In response to Ms. Richard's complaint of the sewer that was on the ground, when we were notified of that, it was on the private side, and we took the steps necessary to contact code enforcement to meet us at the location. We proceeded from there. Other than that, I just wanted to publicly thank the employees with the wastewater department during the recent storm. They left their families and their homes to come put the city first over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, 12, 14, some of them 18 hours, make sure everything was in operation during that time. During the power outage, we lose all the pump stations, we lose all power at the pump station in order for that water to end up at the plant for treatment. We do put 18-wheeler tankers on standby weeks in advance, especially if we know we're going to take a direct hit. Everything's verified early on in the week, so we have them available almost immediately. They were in town on Saturday. We worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think the last trucks left out Thursday morning. Other than that, there was no electronic damage at any of the stations. We had very minor damage where a tree fell on a fence and that was repaired. Other than that, we had 138 locate requests for the month of October. Most of them came during the 12th through the 15th when they were replacing light poles and things like that in the city. We had 28 work orders filed during the month. One in Shady Oaks, which we've repaired today, found the gas line that was put in board by contractors went through one of the sewer service lines. Other than that, it's, everything is on target right now, counting down the days of the season. You know, so hopefully, that's all I have.
Any other questions?
Tim, approximately how many trucks did you have to have used in man hours or cost, let's just say, for the vacuum trucks during the hurricane?
Roughly cost for the vacuum truck, we had six 18-wheelers, two smaller trucks to do the smaller stations, roughly $40,000 for the 5 days. Total cost, that's an estimated average, estimated cost.
And the purpose for them, or the reason they were called in is because
if we do not vacuum out the pump station, most pump stations have gravity lines, the mains. Anytime water runs down a drain in your house, it enters a service line, which enters a gravity feed system. The gravity feed line enters the pump station. From the pump station, it is pumped to the plant, another station, and that station pumps it out to the plant. There are three stations that pump to the plant. Those have generators. And there's a fourth one, the Magnolia station pumps down to the main station. It's also on generator. What we do when we vacuum out a pump station, we find the closest available gravity feed line that feeds a generating station. So we're not going from, say, the furthest part east, all the way across town to the wastewater treatment facility. There was some remarks made through social media that we were actually pumping the city and emptying it out at the wet weather basin. That is not the case. There are 3 manholes right there on Cedar Street that feeds East Park, the Shady Oaks, and that portion of South Crowley, and the northern part by the overpass. So we were able to occupy those trucks at those 3 locations to lower that entire area with those 3 manholes. But all of that sewer was brought to a gravity line within blocks dumped. And we try to time manage as much as we can where we're not traveling to and from, where we can get the station down and prevent backups in people's homes, basically. Once your main lines fill up, your service lines start filling, and then it becomes problems. No showers, no dishwashing, no flushing, things like that.
So in other words, it's locked.
Yes. And then you look at the possibility of liability, provided it gets back into the home, if it's city responsible.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything?
How many locations does it have?
13. 13 that do not.
And so how many of them?
There are 4 generators.
Wires, is there like, you said 3 locations?
That was on the south end. There's 3 different manholes that all come into that one line that goes to the Cedar Street lift station.
Is there a possibility to have a generator or any generator for each location? So take care of that?
We'd have to install certain pieces of equipment inside each lift station as well.
I mean, it's $4,000 for a few days.
5 days.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of plan it out, you know.
That's in the works. It's in the works. I've already spoken to the electrician about that and stuff like that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next young lady, with the engineer report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no action items. I really don't have anything to bring up per se. I didn't highlight the updates. And I can answer any questions you may have now or between now and the council meeting
Anything else? Well, we got an action item here, but, since I wasn't privy to the discussion at the last time this was brought up, and there's a word right here, it says recommended. And I don't recommend anything that I don't know anything about. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna yield to, my colleague, Councilman, Creighton. He had asked questions, and, the questions that he had asked me, I wasn't able to give directions to. So with that being said, I'm gonna yield the floor to Councilman Creighton.
Thank you, Chair. I was hoping that we have everybody here. I've been working on this, and I've tried to shorten it down as much as I could, but I just wanted to present this information to give everyone time to digest it, ask questions, and throw darts at it, or do what you need to do before we have to vote on this sewer user fee increase again. And so bear with me. It's going to be kind of long, and I'm going to try and go kind of slow and explain it as best I can. But so to start off with, the LRWA uses a sustainability factor of 1.15, and stated in this letter that this factor can vary up or down depending on the individual characteristics of each system. That was in their letter. They also had a disclaimer in there saying that all assumptions, estimations, and recommendations are based on information provided by the system or others doing work for the system. And then they had a highlighted thing in there in the letter that said, just for an FYI, I put a comparative rate in the column to the right. So, just to make that perfectly clear, and I guess it depends on if you want the increase or not, as far as how you interpret this letter. I personally don't see a recommendation for the city of Crowley to increase their rates to $17 monthly minimum and $4 per 1,000 gallons for inside the city limits, and $22.50 for the first 1,000 gallons, and $8.25 per 1,000 gallons for outside the city limits, and exempt the sheriff's department from these increases. Now, just to put it in perspective, if you were paying your LOCO bill for 2,000 gallons of usage, you were paying $27.50 for the first of this year. With this increase, you will be paying $41.50 per month. And for a family like mine that uses about 5,000 gallons, we were paying $46.85 per month. And with this increase, it's going to go up to $64.30. So it's not just a little bit. It's a heck of an increase in 1 year that's being proposed. Now, with that being said, there's several ways that I see that we can reasonably achieve this sustainability factor. One way is to reduce depreciation. One way is to reduce expenditures. Another way is to raise revenue, which is the sewer user fee, and maybe all of the above or some of the above. And last month, we heard that we have wasted $55,000 by not doing our job in approving the user fee increase. And I would argue that we did approve a 20% increase, and the committee should have given us different options besides the one we have repeatedly voted down. And it's pretty simple to say, let's just increase the fee and let the citizens pay for it, but I know the majority of the people that I represent in South Crowley don't want that. If we did think that that was the case, then we'd have it on the ballot and let the people vote on a tax proposal. And I think we all know how that would turn out. So according to the budget, the utility department is probably the only department that actually has a cash flow positive. It was $430,000 last year, according to the budget in the city clerk, and $318,000 the previous year. And with those numbers and the way that department is always in compliance and how that facility is maintained, my question is, why is that department head the lowest paid department head in the city? That should be addressed. We just approved an 83-house subdivision and the possibility of one or more hotels coming due to the turf project that we approved, and that should increase the revenue. So how do we do it? As Mr. Stringfellow says, think outside the box. Okay, one way we need to reduce depreciation. One way to do that is we could combine the wastewater and public works and transfer some of that equipment to public works. I've looked at the depreciation schedule and that's a possibility. Another thing is to reduce the expenditures. We could transfer the majority of personnel to public works, use as needed for both, and vice versa. And number three, we could raise revenues, which is increase the user fee or maybe replace some of those mechanical water meters we have with electronic water meters. Or maybe we could do some of all of the above. Very easy to do, and I have a plan if anybody is interested. And now for the easiest option. So, like I said, I obtained a depreciation expense schedule, and just to give everyone an idea of what we're looking at, the cost basis for that depreciation schedule is $32,053,127.23. That present rate is about $1,057,000 per year depreciation is what we're talking about. So if we want adequate savings to replace everything, we need about $32 million if we're talking about that. Ms. Stringfellow, Mr. Core, and myself met with Mr. Jason Hewitt and with Sustainability Partners and Mr. Brady Sessoms with ETech. What we learned is since we already have a contract with Sustainability Partners, all we need to do is a simple addendum to add any equipment we want to their contract with the city from the turf project. They would buy the equipment, install it, maintain it, repair it, and replace it at no additional charge. We would pay for it just like as we are doing with the turf project on a usage basis. It would be something like maybe a few cents per gallon of water that we run through any equipment that they would purchase for it. Okay. For instance, if the IR treatment system went out next week, they would replace it on a cost per gallon of water basis. They would maintain it, repair it, replace it at no additional cost to the city, just like the lighting and the turf at the recreation department. The city would not have to increase the sewer user fee to build up a rainy day fund, as we were told, nor borrow money and tie up credit and affect our bond rating. It would not affect our bond rating at all. This same philosophy could be used for other big ticket items like fire trucks that will have to be replaced pretty soon from what we were told. So I would like to invite Mr. Hewitt and Mr. Sessoms to come and speak to the full council and the mayor next week before we decide on whether or not to increase the sewer user fee again. The wastewater facilities meeting all are achieving the criteria as outlined in Mr. Reed's report for his maintaining compliance with state and federal regulations and providing adequate staffing to properly maintain the system. Cash flow is positive, and the adequate revenues to replace aging and outdated infrastructure can be addressed by sustainability partners if and when the time comes. No need to depreciate for replacement. Another thing is the possibility that the EPA may decide to do away with the open treatment system in the future. This way we won't have millions of dollars tied up in useless equipment. And if you go out there in the wintertime and you see all the ducks in the pond, it's probably something that's going to happen pretty soon. They're not going to allow that too much longer, I wouldn't think. But the possibility of lowering our expenses and depreciation to get closer to a 1.15 sustainability factor and not have to drastically increase the sewer user fee and tie up credit is something I hope would be appealing to everyone. And the contract can be canceled at any time, just like the turf and lighting contract. Now it's up to the mayor. You keep putting the increase on the agenda. Let's think outside the box. It's up to you. Now, these options are the ones that least affect on an overall operations and personnel fee. Other things, I'm sure it can be looked at, but we can reduce the staff, and we can use contract labor. We can totally contract out the operations to a third party. As Mr. Morton suggested last month, sell the wastewater facility and infrastructure just like other utilities such as the water, electricity, gas, cable, telephones. And did anyone see the front page of the Post Signal last week where Esтерwood sold their gas utility system? It makes sense, and you think of Esterwood having a really good idea probably. Simply accept the lower sustainability factor is another thing we could do, or we could do a combination of these ideas and possibly others. But my point is, simply raising the sewer user fee is not the only option we should consider just because that's the only option we were given by the committee and the mayor. There's a lot more things out there, and I hope we look at some of these things and consider them before we increase the sewer user fee another 50% this year.
Well, with
Thank
that
you,
being
Mr. Chair.
said, thank you. So basically, you're bringing them in as a sole maintenance partner. In other words,
They would just do just like they're doing
Right,
at
right.
the rec. They're gonna put the equipment out there as we need it. If we call them tomorrow and say the IR system went out,
right,
they shop around, they buy it, they install it, they maintain it,
right.
they replace it when the time comes, if it needs to replace, and we pay on a usage basis, just like the turf. So if it rains one day, we don't use the turf, we don't pay. If we have a hurricane or something goes through and we don't have very much sewage going through the system, we don't pay as much. We will pay on a, from what they said, on a per gallon basis now.
Okay, from what I'm hearing, he's asking this committee to allow the persons with the sustainability partners to come and give us another direction. So what I'm asking is, if someone wanna make that motion, I have no problem with it, because basically, like I said, the reason why I yield to you at the time, because as you know, I wasn't here with all the discussions into it, and just that word that's on here, say recommended, okay, that puts you into isolated camp right there. It's like the chair is recommended. So what I would ask the committee, if a motion could be brought up to allow, what is sustainable?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to have sustainability partners come and address the full council next, is it Thursday? Our
Well,
next
first of
meeting?
all, we're gonna need to table the action item. We have before us an action item. So before we do anything, put the cart before the horse, there has to be a motion to table the recommendation, and I'll read it out. And it says the action item would be recommended a resolution of the mayor and board of aldermen of the city of Crowley, Acadia Parish, Louisiana, introducing a proposed ordinance and calling for a public hearing to amend and reenact section 10-30, division 1.5, sewer service user fee charge of article 2 of chapter 10 of the code of ordinance of the city of Crowley, and amend the sewer user fee and charges set forth therein, to repeal all ordinance or part of ordinances contrary therefore or in conflict therewith, to provide for the provisions herefore to be servable, and to provide for all matters relative thereto. We need a motion on the floor to table.
That's so moved.
Ms. Alford, you want a second? Ms. Alford, and second, that we table this motion. And now we need a motion to, it was offered by Jeff Carville and Sammy Reggie, second. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I'm about to do now. All right, all in favor? Opposed? All right, that's done. Now we need a motion on the floor to bring forward to this council, I guess for the introduction of what the plans are that Alderman, well, I guess, what you just brought up, they'll be coming in and giving their proposal? Or they're just the facts of what?
I think they would come and tell us what they do, because this is what they do, and they have a really good presentation.
Well, would it be acceptable to you to say review of their services? To give us a review of their services?
Yeah, you don't have to vote on that.
Well, I'm just
have
saying,
them here.
we'll put it on books that this is something that.
It'll be put on the agenda.
Okay. All right, with that being said, that's approved. So basically, before we entice a vote on the sewer user fee increase, what have you, that we would have someone come and give their variation of another solution to it. Okay? Any other legal action to come before us? Anybody? We recess. Tim, wait, hold up. You gave your Okay, we good, okay.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Martin. You done, Mr. Martin?
Yes, that's
Okay,
okay.
thank you. Okay, next Recreation Committee, Mr. Quigley.
That's fine. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to call to order the Recreation Committee. Let's see. We do have a forum, Mr. Primo and Mr. Fogelman not present. First off, I'd like to call Mr. Peter Kirsch to the podium.
Good evening. Got me now? Soccer season started last weekend for the youth. We're playing our games on Saturdays out at Bicentennial Park. Everything's going smooth. Park is a little tight, but it's a great repurpose of that property, and it's just fun to see the kids out enjoying themselves again. Along that same note, the flag football season has begun, and I'd like to thank Coach Louis Cook and Miss Cindy East over at Notre Dame High School for letting us use the Notre Dame practice field behind the school for our games on Saturday mornings. The seasons will last through, some leagues are going to the beginning of December, some going to the mid-December, and we just knock on wood that the weather stays on our side for the next 3 or 4 weeks. As you all know and heard, if you've passed by the facility lately, the demo work has started, and we should start seeing construction here in the next couple of days, so it's exciting times over at the Recreation Department. Along with that project too, I'd also like to personally thank the street department and employees of that department. They cut down over 25 trees in a matter of 2 days. It was very impressive to watch them work their magic. I hate to say I had my doubts, but it was an impressive feat, and they went above and beyond my expectations. So hats off, and I can't thank them enough for that. Also, if you pass by the facility, since the time has changed, it gets dark a little earlier, there were some new LED lights installed at the Gladys Trumbull Tennis Center. That was part of the Lumia project. We had a couple of kinks worked out, some programming issues, but everything is working fine right now, and we're really excited about that. And also with the Rice Festival building project, we are expecting a notice to proceed on the upgrades to that building on November 9th, and we're being told to expect a 90-day project time. So hopefully with materials being available and things ready to roll after hurricanes, we should see a completion of that project somewhere beginning of February 9th, mid-February, a short month. Mr. Brad, I was thinking, and I'm thinking out loud with council tonight, your question earlier about the expansion of the parking project and the funding for that. We just heard from the bonding attorney that we had a premium on our bonds to the tune of 15.6 on a $14 million bond sale. Mr. Mader gave us a 1.9 figure on a completion just on the high end of that project, and we had already expected somewhere around 600 to 700,000 on that project. But with that premium, that was another 1.6 million that we were not expecting. So it's just a thought that popped into my head that, I hate to say you have an extra 1.6 million, but we had a premium that we weren't expecting several months ago. So.
And Peter, this is your expertise, and I just want to make sure, the extra expenditures, that there will be a return, to offset that, because that's, a lot when the city needs, those type of dollars in other departments.
Yes, sir, I understand that. This is something that, as far as this project goes, that could directly cripple us as far as the size of the tournaments we host in the future. You try to get 500 cars in 300 spots, it won't be long before the tournament directors and those people start to hear the complaints about they don't want to come to Crowley, they can't park. You can contact Youngsville. They spent $50 million on their project from scratch, and it was one of the first things they addressed a year after their first full season was parking.
Yeah, because I've seen that personally, and they have expanded it just as we speak today.
Yes, sir. So that was just a thought some notes that I had made earlier. So, other than that, any questions?
I just want to say it was very refreshing to pass by Bicentennial Park, the park I used to play softball in all the time. It's been grown up and terrible, and to see all the kids out there playing and the parents out there, it's very refreshing to see that that facility is being utilized again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I guess one of the main questions I have is, we get a lot of responses out there at the MLK Center.
Yes, sir.
Up to the park and the field. And one of the main things that we asking for, and you and I talked about, is the lights.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that I discussed with some of the persons that put together the different teams over there, is that there will be availability of lights that's gonna be changed out once we change out at the Villa Stadium and whatever. So I hope I didn't get before the card on this and tell them that eventually we'll be putting lights up there. We're just waiting to be taken down and then repurposed.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that being said, and another question you might have on the restrooms, we really need to get that done.
Yes, sir.
It's starting to be a place where, for the first time in a while, the kids are actually enjoying themselves.
Yes, sir.
And at the end of the day, like I told you before, I'm not into having, portalettes are for special events. But to be used as a primary activity, I have a problem.
Yes,
And
sir.
I know right now, there's no alternatives to it, other than having someone at that center, and that's something that we need to talk about. I hope you get into that.
Okay.
Even for certain hours of the day, even on the weekend, until we get the facility up and running, I think it would be incumbent on this council as well as the department to provide a safe place for, especially with COVID and everything going, a safe place for them to use the restrooms or wash hands or whatever.
Yes.
So with that being said, I'll get with, hopefully some other councils, whoever wants to go with me. And not only in West Valley, but I mean, like you said, Bicentennial Park. It's starting to be a place where kids start to hang out. So, everything is safe.
Yes, sir.
I'm not looking for no preference or anything, it's safe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Kirk.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Tim Mater, City Engineer.
Once again, I have the written report, no action items, no dates that you can talk to me about anytime that you can.
Thank you. Any other legal items come before the Recreation Committee? Then the Recreation Committee recess.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for stepping in. Zoning and annexation, Mr. Fulton is not here, Mr. Martin.
Okay, zoning administration committee, everyone's here, we have a program set for chair, and, Tim, you have a report?
Just the written report. Again, I have some updates, but no action.
Okay,
Page 20, where's the beginning?
Where do we go?
I don't think it's.
Huh? Oh, there's nothing to be read?
No,
Oh,
no
okay,
action.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, y'all waiting on me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, anything else to come before, zoning and annexation? We recess.
And thank you, Mr. Martin, for stepping in. Public safety, Mr. Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. I've called to order the Public Safety Committee meeting. All members are present except Stephen Primo. We have a quorum. On the reports, we first will have a report from Police Chief Jimmy Broussard.
Good afternoon. Crowley Police responded to 968 calls for service in the month of October. Included in this number were 150 disturbance calls, 63 suspicious persons, 52 suspicious circumstances, 65 accidents, 5 attempted suicides, 9 simple batteries, 8 domestic abuse batteries, and 31 calls for illegal use of a weapon. Our narcotics division has done 6 search warrants in the month of October on known houses where illegal narcotics are being used and sold. 33 arrests were made during the month of October on scene. 13 citations were written by officers this month in the city. Ted had a total of 43 citations for the month of October. It was worked 3 different times during the month. I have, as of November 2nd, opened Ted up fully with no boundaries. They are allowed to work it in the city as well as on the major thoroughfares coming into the city, and allowed to work any day and any time they wish. Also, we have made some changes to the department. Captain Christopher Osborne is now Divisional Supervisor of Patrol. Captain Troy Hebert is Divisional Supervisor over Services, and Captain Tammy Mallett is now Divisional Supervisor over Compliance. Some officers were changed as far as their schedules as well. We are working with Mr. Reagan regarding Pelagic and our contract with them. We have had an exorbitant amount of service tickets that have not been resolved, and Mr. Reagan has finalized a document which the mayor will have Gibson PC look over, I believe, prior to sending it. We are in the process of hiring 2 officers and one which will come to us probably in the month of December, and 1 dispatcher. One dispatcher moved from the dispatcher position to a part-time records clerk position. So we are in the process of filling that as well. That should bring us at present to full staff.
How many is that for?
Sir, I'm sorry?
What is the number for full staff?
Full staff is, we are 42 full-time employees.
If I may, I just would like to add to the chief's report, I'd like proud to say that we finally got Axon taken care of.
Yes,
Wonderful.
a great relief.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my question, thank you.
Yes, a great relief.
All the effort.
Also, I want to publicly thank all of the officers of the police department, just like they thanked all of the other city workers during both hurricanes. They did a tremendous job, and we're kind of glad that they finally got a respite and a relief from all of the working. So, but I want to publicly commend them and applaud them for everything they did above and beyond the call.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for Chief? Just remain, we have some.
Yes, sir, not a problem.
Coming up, thank you, Chief. Now we move on to the Fire Chief, Louis Romero's report.
Good evening. Good evening. The last 17 days at the fire department, we've been working. We've been cleaning up. We brought a bunch of truckloads of old inventory, broken stuff to the barn for surplus. In the month of October, we responded to 71 emergencies, of which 3 were structure fires, 10 were fire alarms, 15 were EMS calls, 5 hazmat calls, 4 burning debris calls, 1 extrication, 5 vehicle accidents, 23 public assist, 1 to assist the police department, and 4 electrical fires. And the average monthly response time was 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm gonna start the interview process next week to try to get some of the guys back. On one of the shifts, we have a problem with the shift being short, so we need to try to fill that void. Any questions for the fire department?
Thank you, Chair. Chief, y'all, how many are you understaffed right now? 2, 3, or?
Right now, we have 2 positions in the budget, but we actually 3 short. Yeah, Secretary.
When you're saying there are 2 positions in the budget, but 3 short, 2 positions to fill?
There was 3 open positions. We was able to get Mr. Miller back. That's one of the guys that was laid off in April.
Yes.
so we have 2 openings. Jody's spot was filled as a fire chief, but the position was filled, the man was never replaced. Everybody moves up 1, so that leaves a firefighter's spot still open.
Thank you for that clarification. Alderman
So
Clayton?
there was a total of 5, right, when all this went down? Are you not planning on replacing
The
the other
EMC was Mr. Chrisman. He was supposed to retire the month before, and he stayed on, and he was gonna retire in May, so he just left. The secretary, that position, it's not funded, for the secretary's position as of the budget right now.
But it was in the previous budget, that's what I'm saying. So you don't have any intention of replacing those other additional 2 people that you lost? I mean, there was 5 total.
The EMC,
Right,
No,
and
sir.
the secretary.
the secretary, if we would be able to somehow work that into the budget, that could be looked at a later date.
Just for the record, I thought all the department heads had to say, into the budget. We had discussed that, wasn't it, said that with the new budget, and I thought that was part of the contention on getting this thing passed, but is that all the department heads would have a say into it? Okay. I'm just asking a question,
No, they did, we met with, secretary.
And they wasn't brought up about your secretary's position?
I
He wasn't.
I was the chief then.
Okay,
I've
okay.
only been the chief 17 days.
Okay, well, we'll have to know in a while.
And counting.
Look, you got the same last name, so I mean.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that being said, since we have a new, chief, is there any way you could probably sit down with, Revenue and Finance? Because you will need a secretary, I don't care what, I mean, their job is fighting fires. They're not intake people. So just FYI, you know, like you said, you need to work into your budget. Maybe something could be, streamlined for right now, you know, and when next year's budget comes about, could be replaced. But I mean, if your secretary is not, so you don't have a secretary, is that what you're saying?
No, sir, right now I do not have a secretary.
Let's get you, fire chief. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but, I suggest that you get with, Revenue and Finance with this. Because, if y'all out on the fire, who's gonna, take control of the office?
If we want to fire, who's going to take control of the office?
Right. I mean, well, whatever duties that the secretary does right now.
But our secretary answered the telephone, and the secretary did payroll, and she did filing and stuff
Well,
like
the
that.
secretary will do this, okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Right now, that is falling on myself and Captain Munson.
Yeah, but I mean, understand this and understand it well. When you move up the ranks, there are certain things you wanna leave, down the ladder. Okay?
Yes, sir.
You divide it up, if you divide your duties up, and I tell people all the time, in fact, and that's if I'm here to divide it in a few minutes here. Everybody's time to put something, okay? If you are hired to do a certain, work, whatever your work is pertaining to your rate of pay, that's where it stops at. Okay? If someone asks you to do anything over that, I mean, you know, unless I'm wrong right here, well, I know in my business, we have to pay them. Nobody works for free, okay? So you can't divide your time unless you want to, all right? But the law says very simple, if something happened where, and I'm just using this as just a gesture or whatever, if someone would call and, they smelling gas, and usually when they call, the secretary usually answer whatever, okay, if you're all busy, correct?
Well,
I'm just not gas, but anything.
That call will go through 911.
Okay, well, I'm just saying,
And they would dispatch
whatever,
us.
okay, maybe y'all supposed to, bring, smoke detectors to someone, okay? They call and say, well, we need a smoke detector, well, the secretary writes it down, and God forbid that person perish because, carbon monoxide. You understand what I'm saying? Well, who gets the blame? You can always say it's not my scope of work. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, when you get hired into a position, there's a scope of work that you follow. All right, the law protects that. You know, it don't ask for a neurosurgeon to go and fix a broken bone of a cat. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Because whatever it costs to fix a bone on a cat, I'm pretty sure it doesn't equal to the rate of pay that he called when you go into somebody's brain. Make sense? So I would think if you get with, it's like the chief have 100% of his, I'm talking about police chief, make yourself whole as well. I think it'll do better for you, and it looks a lot better knowing that if someone, you know, kids still go to the fire station. I know with the
With COVID, no.
Right,
They have not been, we ain't been going to schools neither.
but that's what I'm saying. So I would say, I don't know what the salary is for that person, but I'm pretty sure something could come out. I mean, even if you streamline one thing for right now, just to make sure that the person has, that's my opinion.
And Chief, we're gonna depend on your input to tell us if you need a secretary or not. I mean, you're the department head, you know, you're the fire chief, certainly we want your input. By no means are we trying to put somebody in place that you don't feel is necessary, but if you do feel that position is necessary, by all means, we will support you on that.
Well, right now, I need to get the men back on the trucks. That's my number one priority.
Like I say, that's, you just be vocal and tell us what you need.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions, Fire Chief?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to City Inspector Tony Duhon. The mayor informed me that he is unable to attend. He had to assist his mother with something and was not able to make the meeting tonight. I think we do have someone here.
Yes.
And would you state your name for the record, please?
Jason Huntz,
Yes, sir.
I have some photos here of some progress, but also hurricane damage to the property that's being scrutinized here.
Now, what property, what's address this property that you're here about?
318 West 10th Street, I believe.
Was 10th or 9th?
9th. Sorry.
And this is the same property that came before the council a few months ago. And repair permits and then condemnation.
Yes,
Did you get a demo permit?
I tried to do both, as Mr. Reagan's papers that were sent to me, certified mail, indicated that I could bring it up to code or demolish it. And when I went to get the permit, I was told Mr. Dillon wasn't going to give me a repair permit, just to tear it down. But at the time, I'm reading the paper from Mr. Reagan, and it says I have the option to do, and I tried to demo what was needing to be removed and repair what needed to be brought up to code, but without the proper permit for the repairs, I could only demo. So I've been demoing from the inside and preparing to hope to get the repair permit. I'm ready to go for it, and, you know, I've got pictures and all, but he won't give me the repair, bring it up to code.
Mr. Bunce, but you understand what demo does not mean start renovating by taking out and replacing. That means that the structure has to be removed completely from the site.
The way I read Mr. Reagan's paperwork, I could bring it up to code, which is what I'm trying to do by removing the unsafe structure part, and as a tree just fell on it, it really helped me a lot. Get rid of the structural problems, because they're right on the property.
Do you have that paper, that letter with you? Do you have the letter from Mr. Reagan? Because Mr. Duhon's not here, so basically, you know, whatever
I
you're
was
doing.
trying to get a copy from Mr. Duhon, but he wasn't in his office.
There, excuse me.
He was offered a permit, both demolition and both repair. The law says you have 30 days to comply. And today is 30th day, if I'm not mistaken, is today, and it is not in compliance, according to Mr. Dooley. And I can confirm that in the morning. I I just can't confirm it at this minute. And it was a demolition permit that was purchased. And we're past time now. So, yeah.
Okay, we voted to demo this property, but then he was given a letter by Mr. Reagan saying that he either could repair it or demo it? Is that what I understand?
No. Not Mr. Reagan, it's the law. It's the law, you have to allow.
Then why does it even come up before us? What are we doing here?
It's the law.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm serious.
Okay.
Why do we even,
What is your question now? I'm sorry.
my question is, why do we even vote to condemn a property if our answer is just gonna be usurped?
If your answer is gonna be what?
It just negated.
No, it's not negated. The man has a constitutional right to be offered a demo permit. And he has 30 days to comply.
Okay, but
And if
he
30
had a
days are
repair
not,
permit as well, right?
And that was what, they were offered.
The last thing the council,
Without the document itself.
Right, the time.
right, I mean, if today is the deadline, and it was supposed to be demoed, and now you're here to try to,
The hurricane actually kind of hurt and helped me
you know,
also.
that was all part of the,
Anticipated.
Mr. Martin. Listen, you know, I don't know why you came to that podium stating what you just stated. I've been knowing Tom Reagan a while, and I know the other one, well, I cannot see Tom sending you a certified letter telling you, don't worry about demolizing it, after the council had approved to be taken down.
I just read what.
Well, I don't
to
know
be
if you
certified
just read
now.
what have you, but the fact of the matter is, that house is a disgrace to the area.
That's why I'm working on it.
Working on it ain't gonna help, it needs to be taken down, okay?
Actually, the
You still have
structure
people
is
going in
very
and out of
sound,
that house.
except for a few
Hold,
spots.
hold, listen to me. I gave you a chance to talk. They still have people going in and out of that house.
No, they don't.
Oh, yes, they do.
No, they don't. So you showed me the one, I got that sucker locked up good.
Locked
tight.
up.
I did exactly what you
Locked
proposed.
up.
I put boards the exact size of the windows
Locked up.
in the windows. I got it locked up with 2 padlocks.
The fact of the matter, it needs to be taken down.
There's no
You
need
put
to structure.
crossbow-
I got pictures of the structural integrity.
What is structure? Are you
There
crazy?
are huge
You got a roof
spots.
that's falling in the back.
That's right, thanks to the tree.
Listen to me.
Steph,
Look,
excuse me.
go ahead, Chair,
I appreciate you coming. Fact of the matter is, we have,
No, I've got,
So we have ordinance
all over town, that are standing here, and I've been visiting from hours.
hold on, the mayor just called Tom.
And they've been
Hold on. What,
thank you. Thank you. According to the permit that he had purchased for the demolition permit.
Because I was
All
denied
right,
a building permit.
then he had 30 days to comply, was not in compliance. And as of right now, he cannot, by law, he cannot purchase any type of permit. And that's it. It has to be different.
Well, why was I told that I could do repair? Mr. Ray, Mr. Tony told me that he wasn't gonna do it, no matter what he said, because he wants it torn down. Well, where does he take on y'all's responsibility himself after the letter that I received from Mr. Reagan said otherwise? I could do either.
where's the letter? Where's the letter?
The letter's in my house. I brought the wrong file. But Mr. Tim also has a letter, and I went down to the secretary, but they'd already left.
Mr.
To get a
Mons,
copy.
were you served any papers in the last couple of days?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay.
has any signage been placed on your building, but the demo?
He has to be served, that's why I asked him if he got served. He has to be served before, that's notification of him being served on demo, and then we'll put the sign on. We can't put the sign on until he is served.
Okay.
I mean, that's not pictures here of what I've been doing.
Notification.
There's some of the buildings that are up still erect 10 years.
Mr. Punchman, we're following the directive from our city attorney and our code enforcement. There's nothing this council can do today.
I was kind of hoping that the council could drop it to affect the hurricane also.
I understand. Our code enforcement persons in here, we're gonna, we have nothing, your opinion on it.
And I lay claim to all the wood there, none of can scrap, it's my wood, it's a little good wood. If the city wants to tear it down, I want every board accounted for.
Hey, man, first of all, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
first of all, listen very well.
I'm trying to do.
You got 30 days to take every board that you want off of there. After 30 days, all bets are off. Okay, so if you want to
Well, I
go
took
tonight and
mine
start
off.
taking your boards down, that's you and your time. But once the city condemned, and when these bulldozers, whatever gets in that front, hey, buddy, all bets are off. You have 30 days to do what you need to do.
And I've been working with it, even through hurricanes, I've been working with it. I'm trying to do what I can do.
Ms. Munson, again, I appreciate your effort coming forth, but I think you need to take this up with the city attorney, because we're gonna base our decisions on what directive we've been given.
I'll file for an intent to file an injunction.
Well, that's your right prerogative, but you're right, as far as what we have in front of us, we're moving forward with the demolition.
No,
But I am utilizing right now, as a matter of fact, still.
Well,
I'm removing
today was the deadline.
unsafe parts of the home that have been damaged, and I've made repairs to the pieces that do need to be brought up to code.
But sir, with all due respect, you made repair to a building that had been condemned.
But I did not know in the beginning.
No, you didn't. We
I was not
condemned it at the
giving
last time you approached us. I don't know what you did not understand at that time, but it was at that time it was condemned.
But I had
And you had 30
no
days to
idea
complete
that
that condemnation.
Because nobody wants to go do the work because they see it as a big.
Sir,
big
sir, that's your
project.
responsibility, it's not ours.
Exactly.
I think your time here has been used and it's done.
Well, just to let the city know, the council know that I laid claim to all the wood that is properly and not broke up and destroyed. And there's almost 75% of the houses in good shape.
Martin, if I may give him the definition, when someone is going and they are basically taking the house down board by board, you understand? Then you can lay claim to whatever you want. But demolition is meant going away. It's being wrecked,
Okay,
demised.
understand, but
Okay?
it's like.
Now, if you want to take one board off at a time, while they on the other side with a bulldozer, that's on you.
That's on me.
That's on you. So when you say lay claim, you know, I guess you can lay claim to anything.
Relax, it's your right. If you want to claim, you go take it.
Yeah.
Take, you gotta lay claim properly, because it's like, why does the church that's over there by the crawfish nest, has been there probably vacant 70 years or so, it's still standing? If it's so
Why don't you
adamant to tear
compare-
down structures that are unimportant or dangerous, why not tear down church? Why not tear down some houses nobody cares about? And I'm trying to prepare to make the city clean and right.
Sir, order. We have heard your voice, we've taken into consideration, we've given you what this council can do today, which is effectively take the lead from our city attorney and our code enforcement person. We appreciate you coming, but I think you said all we need to hear. Okay. And if you need to go further, I would suggest you contact our city attorney and visit with him.
I will definitely try to do that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's move on. Would everybody, excuse me, I have to be in Baton Rouge for 7:30. I'll be moving from my coveralls to a suit off, so I have to go.
You gotta get going.
Yeah, but I had to get this down. Look, I appreciate everybody. God bless y'all. And
Steph, can you hang up for just 1 minute to get our, the next item? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take long. We'll move to beer and liquor licenses. We have 39 renewals. The applicants for renewal are attached to the agenda, and I move to approve these in global for consideration by the full council.
I'll second.
Motion and second, discussion, before, Chief, go ahead, Sam.
I'm gonna try to be as fast as I can. I'm not on the committee, and I actually can't vote on anything anyway, because I'm part of what's in here also. I had mentioned in April about, getting like an update from the chief about if anybody, there was tickets toward any businesses that are not following the rules. I know there were some issues, because I've been getting some phone calls the last couple of weeks about underage and littering and even overcapacity. also an issue about time change with the, some businesses are closing like at 2, and they're supposed to be closing at 11. So what I did, I made a phone call to ATC for the state and fire marshal of the state. ATC didn't get back to me, but the fire marshal did. And actually, I talked to the head of the fire marshal, which is Butch Browning, and he's made sure to tell me that we're supposed to be still closing at 11, everybody. So what I'm, not say suggesting, but if there is anybody that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I'm sure the police would have to notify them. And if they're still not complying by next week, maybe we need to take into consideration with their liquor license.
And we are taking that under advisement, Mr. Reggie, because there is 1 or 2 of them. Now, a couple of them have not reapplied yet. I don't think it's in that, in the
Well, I had some
package.
constituents that were having problems with some of the people, I guess, because it was late. And
Right.
even the newspaper had called me asking me, hey, is it still 11? Did it move to 2?
No, it is 11. We haven't been notified differently. We have had 1 or 2 that we've warned. In fact, the fire marshals actually came one night and shut one down about 11. So, and we are examining the possibility of removing their liquor license, at least pulling their city license, at which time ATC would probably pull their state license.
It was just more, just let everybody know what's going on.
Sure, thanks for the input. So Chief, basically, the 39 applicants that we have here, do you have any issues with approving these for renewal?
One we're discussing, but I mean, that's gonna be ATC and when we went, or when the fire marshal went, they closed, but the ones we are having some issues with have not reapplied yet.
Okay.
When they do present themselves, that will be the 2 that may not get a signature, certainly.
And one of these 39, if you get further information between now and next week.
If I find something different between now and next week, I will absolutely
Yes.
notify the council.
Next week. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any other legal items to come before the council? Public Safety Committee recess. Thank you. Thank you. For us taking care of that.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Next is Public Building, Mr. Willard.
Before I turn this over to my chairperson, I just got a question. We got a form at 4 p.m. at the City Council Chamber. We had the community report. The last meeting we had, Chairman Fogelman asked a question. If what he was gonna do with the enterprise center, being the damages it had for the last 2 storms, are we in the process of repairing those damages?
Yes, sir.
So we could go ahead with this?
Yes, sir.
That's all I'd like.
Yes, sir. Actually, it has been repaired, and now we're looking into possibly the roof on the Enterprise Center being entirely replaced, or just the part that we repaired, replaced. I went into the Enterprise Center myself, in the Smiles department.
Yes, sir.
They had very minimal damage on probably 2 ceiling towers that came down because they got damp,
Yes, sir.
and that was it.
Okay.
So they have been operating. They've been in there, been
I mean, I
operating.
understand that too, sir.
Yes, sir.
I was just was asking that question, but I have to turn it over to my co-chair, because I got family members working.
Oh, yes, absolutely, okay. Mr. Inclement?
Thank you, Chair and Mayor. The purpose of said meeting is to consider action items, to consider a resolution by Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Crowley authorizing a lease to Smile Community Action Agency for office space in the Crowley Enterprise Center located at 11 North Parkerson Avenue, Crowley, Louisiana, to provide for the terms and conditions thereof and to provide for all matters relative thereto, and I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? It was seconded by Alderman Crater. Any discussion? And Mayor, you did say that we repaired the roof
Yes.
there, and possible replace the roof, or?
It's repaired, it is repaired and protected by any further rains. And we are trying to decide, I'm getting advice right now on whether we want to just repair and replace that particular roof, it's a torch-on roof, or replace all of it, because some of it has 20+ years on it. So that's what we're looking into.
Any other further discussion?
I have a question. So
Yes,
is the
yes, sir.
space occupied, can it be occupied now?
Well, absolutely, they haven't stopped.
Okay, so they haven't been
Well,
forced out?
I said they stopped because of the hurricane, yeah.
Sure.
But then they went back
But
in.
no damage to their office space?
No, sir.
So the lease can be executed
Oh, yeah.
as soon as possible?
Yeah, and I checked the other buildings as well. And the one who I think sustained the most damage, which is really not that bad, in my opinion, was the Chamber of Commerce, their side. And it really wasn't that bad. Of course, the roof was torn off and it could have been a lot worse.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead and vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So I'd like to make the record known that Mr. Woodward did abstain, and he'll have to do the same thing come next Thursday meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Are there any other actions to come before Buildings Committee? Then we recess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just continue reading. Insurance
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Personnel Committee, we do have a quorum, and there are no action items. I just want to mention that the Civil Service Board will have a meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and they will elect a new president and select a new representative from the fire department at that time. Just wanted to give you all an update on that. And are there any other legal items to come before insurance and personnel? Oh,
Coming up.
On the representative for the fire department, we held nominations. We had 2 nominations. One was Driver Scott Mouton, and the other one was Captain Monto. And Captain Monto turned it down, so Scott Mouton is gonna be the fire department representative serving on the board.
great, thank you, Chief. Are there any other items? And insurance and personnel will recess.
Thank you, Ms. Trinfellow. Next, Community and Economic Development, Mr. Reggie.
Thanks, Mayor. We do have a quorum and everyone is present. Under action items, I don't have any. And then under non-action items, I'll just say that Taste of Crowley is tomorrow. And the Oregon Wine Stroll was scheduled for Friday the 13th, which will be lucky. That's it.
Lucky day.
Lucky day. If nothing else to come before Community and Economic Development Committee, we will recess.
Thank you, Mr. Reggie. Next, Revenue and Finance Committee.
The
Mr.
Revenue and Finance Committee will reconvene. We have a quorum, 1 absent, and Mr. Primo. Purpose of the meeting, consider, nothing, and if there's any other items to come before the committee will then recess.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I probably could have called you. I didn't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to get like that. Brad didn't want to do it. Yeah, you don't get it. Yeah. Well, I don't get something too, but I don't have to deal. It's all, that's what I want. Yeah. Whether you agree with the, what Well, anyway, I didn't want to throw you under the bus like that. Not a problem, but I did call and you called me. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna